What's up, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode here of the
Geek Buddies.
Huh?
Hey!
We are back with our main show here on a Friday as we're recording it. Don't know when you guys are going to be watching it, but we are recording it on a Friday. So much to get into going on in the world of entertainment. Of course, as you saw from the headline of this episode, we're going to talk about the Beau DeMayo X-Men 97 Marvel situation. That's going to be a massive thing. Going to get into some trailers, going to get into some stuff going on with comic book movies and a James Cameron Terminator update we got going on. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, and you're going to be able to see me next year on 2025 on a show that if you watch the coming next year HBO Max preview, the show that I did might pop up on there real quick. And I'm also pinned for something right now, so fingers crossed.
Nice.
Last time we did one of these, I got the call that I booked while we were recording, so
Hey,
let's see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
Game of Thrones. Let's go. House of the Dragon. Shannon. Put him in armor. I love the idea. But yeah, for those of you who are new to the show, thank you so much for taking a chance on us and joining us. The way the show works, and you old hats know this, each of us brings up a geek news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take a couple of breaks, and then we get into our big geek news item, which will be the Beau DeMayo Marvel situation. But Shannon McClung starts us off first here. What do you got, Shannon?
Well, I've got trailers. Our first one is our second look at the latest entry into the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. It is our second look at KRAVEN the Hunter. This one is directed by J.C. Chandor, still starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe. You know, things happen. This one, you know, Johnny did his trailer reaction already, and look, Aaron Taylor Johnson is I think he's an incredible leading man, and I think he is only going to get better and better and better and better. This trailer looks like a really decent action movie, but it just sort of leans into like, why would you waste this really great character that you could potentially use in a much bigger film on something that thus far the experiment has not worked out yet? But that being said, I'll be very curious to hear what you gentlemen say. You know, again, we had Johnny's trailer reaction, so we'll go over to Mikey first. What did you think of our second look at KRAVEN the Hunter?
You know, when the Echo trailer came out, and everybody was like, oh, look at this Echo trailer. And it was like, hey, guys, this trailer, this is going to be violent, hardcore, more blood than you've ever seen in a Marvel Disney Plus show. And my response was, wow, it really looks like they have absolutely nothing else to promote here. This is what they're going to lean into. That's what this trailer was. It was like, hey, look, it's KRAVEN, and it's bloody, and bodies explode, and he's stabbing people, and look at the blood. And I'm like, okay. Like, honestly, this is, there's like, the less said about it, the better at this point. This entire Marvel, Sony, we're going to take the Spider-Man characters and build our own universe, with the exception of the fact that the Venom movies did decently. Like that there's 3 of them, they do really well, and I think that has more to do with just the sheer popularity of Venom as a character than the quality of those films. This doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. Even if, to Shannon's point, this ended up being a perfectly decent action movie. Like, don't think it's going to be great, but okay, here was a decent movie, and the third act was KRAVEN fought the Rhino. What does this set up in any universe that makes us excited about seeing all of these characters and all like Rhino gets defeated and then KRAVEN goes to New York and like takes Madam Web on a walk? Like what are we excited about here? Like there's nothing. Like at this point, it's just, I don't understand how anybody internally at Sony still thinks anything here is a good idea.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, do you want to give us a little replay of your trailer reaction?
Well, I've watched it 3 more times because, my reaction is my reaction. And that's the first time I watch a trailer when I do those reactions. So I miss things and I may not catch certain lines or certain intentions. But yeah, watching it 3 more times, I just, and back to back, by the way, I was like, let's just see if I can, kind of figure that. And I felt the same pretty much after every single time, which is what the fuck is the story here? Because it just seems like you must join the family business. I don't want to join it, but you must. And it's that back and forth. And then, of course, I'm going to stab people with this tooth. We do get the rhino thing, but the rhino thing looks less impressive every time you watch it. It looks like they came up with this with paper mache at a black box theater, and we're like, we're going to put this together and make it look somewhat kind of like it's a rhino. And it just isn't impressive. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it is like they're just trading in, as Michael said very well, on the violence that you're going to see in the movie. Look, if nothing else, you're going to see kills. Come and watch this movie. But there's no real like kind of excitement or uniqueness or coolness to the trailer. And Aaron Taylor looks good at the end in the KRAVEN makeshift outfit. Great, that's fine. But what is Zazie Beetz? I mean, she has 2 scenes and they're less than 5 seconds each. We have no idea what her. I'm sorry, not Zazie Beetz. I'm sorry, Ariana DeBose. We have no idea what her role is in the movie, right? And so it just becomes like, well, what is he doing?
But she does have a perm.
Yeah, she does. She does. Is she seeking vengeance? Why is he seeking vengeance? Is he going to end up with his dad at the end being evil? Is he going to see through like the other side of things? And so it just feels now like it's kind of a useless film to watch because in the end, it's not going to really mean anything. And
Russell Crowe is his dad, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Russell Crowe's dying early on. Like, let's just be clear. Like, Russell Crowe got his payday, came in for 2 days, did his shooting so that they can say Russell Crowe's in the movie. Russell Crowe went home. Like, I will be shocked. I mean, the movie is Russell Crowe is like, I'm a vicious killer. Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, I don't want to be a killer. Russell Crowe gets killed. Aaron Taylor Johnson goes on a rampage. Ariana DeBose speaks to his higher angels and says, maybe you shouldn't be like your family. And at the end, they're somehow going to go, I'm a killer, but I'm a killer for the right reasons. And they're going to follow the exact same problem that they followed with Venom and Morbius and everything else, which is you're taking all of these villains, you're making them anti-heroes. But if you make them all an anti-hero and you even have the slightest desire to have them all fight Spider-Man at some point, that story is inherently going to be a mess because none of them are strictly speaking bad guys anymore. So why are they fighting Spider-Man? So like you're going to have to leap if you ever get there, which let's be clear, based on the track record, I don't think they're going to have to tackle this problem. But if they ever did have to tackle that problem, you're going to have to justify why Venom, who you basically have made an anti-hero, Morbius, who is basically an anti-hero, and KRAVEN, who I'm 90% sure will end up being an anti-hero, end up teaming up and going, you know what? Fuck the hero part. Let's go back to being bad and fight Spider-Man. Like it's just not smart from a long-term IP strategy.
I mean, I can't really argue with any of those points. Now, allegedly, Sony is pretty happy with it because they did delay it till the holiday season. So it is, this holiday season. If you can't wait for the blood and guts that you're going to get in Nosferatu, 2 weeks earlier, you can get the blood and guts from KRAVEN. But also, again, the director J.C. Chandor, apparently Sony was so happy with it that he's doing his next film for Sony. So I mean, even if this movie does come out as an incredible film, again, it just speaks to the squandering of IP that they seem to be doing. And it's kind of a shame. I mean, you would think after Morbius, after Madame Web, and granted, this movie was already in production when both of those were in the pipeline. After this, it's like, okay, maybe we put this to bed and give our Spidey villains a rest until we know what we're going to do, whether it be with Marvel or without Marvel. Mikey, what you think? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking of whether or not I want to say something or not. This is not KRAVEN related, but I was talking to somebody at a party recently who works at Sony, and they had seen Venom 3, and I asked them about the Venom picking up the little piece of the symbiote in the bar from the post-credit sequence in No Way Home, and was basically met with that's okay. That's in the Marvel Sony universe. And I'm like, no, it's not. And so basically where I'm hinging on all of this is if Venom 3 comes out and they don't address the fact that little tiki bar with the Ted Lasso guy in it is in the 616 universe. At this point, I don't think that Sony has any idea of what they're doing. Like, I don't think that there is an understanding of how to handle their universe. And that sums up the post-credit sequence in Morbius with Michael Keaton.
Right.
Like, there just seems to be this inherent, at a base level, a misunderstanding of how these two universes sit next to each other in a way that every geek who even minimally understands the comic book universes gets. So that, combined with the fact of what I was saying earlier of, like, even if you're going to put a Peter Parker in this universe, I just don't. And then add in all of the girls from all the women from Madam Web who were destined to become spider heroes that we saw for 30 seconds in the movie. Like, there just is like, so where's that going? How does this fit? What is this? It's like, it just really makes me realize that as much as we all sit on the audience side watching these giant connected universes and these IP, and we all think it's pretty like this, it's pretty clear how you're supposed to connect things. It just, a lot of people in the industry do not understand it.
Right, and that's I was going to push back on what Shannon said. Just because Sony gave JC Chandor their next movie doesn't necessarily mean that this movie is good. Like, it's just that if you judge Sony's decision making so far in this particular universe, I wouldn't trust them to tell me what's a good movie, what isn't at all. And so the fact that they gave him a movie means nothing to me, because especially when the head of Sony came out this week and said, Blake Lively's done a wonderful job of bringing domestic violence to the forefront here with this movie. And it's like, what are you talking about? Everyone has said that that's the problem with the rollout. So it's just this, I don't trust Sony at all now. And so what Michael said, when you hear it from people who are working for them, that they're like, oh, it totally makes sense. You're like, oh, this is a groupthink. There's nothing to be done here. They don't actually believe, they don't actually understand what's happening here. So.
I will say, just because before you all say it in the comments, some of you probably already typed this in the comments, and you can then go type, oh, wait, I hear you now. I am not talking about Sony Pictures Animation. Sony Pictures Animation is a separate entity. It is down the street. And Sony Pictures Animation and Lord & Miller know exactly what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
And the Spider-Verse movies are two of the best comic book movies that have ever been made. And Sony Pictures Animation can keep doing whatever the fuck they want because they get it. So what we're talking about is the live action Sony movies, not the animated, because I need to make that distinction because everybody keeps calling me out on it, and I want to be very clear.
Well, and again, this is not me trusting Sony's barometer. I'm saying Sony is happy enough with the movie that they immediately signed him up for his next film. That's not me saying I think it's going to be good. I'm saying Sony likes it.
I bet Sony Pictures Animation gives the live action people the wrong address every time, and they just never show up there because they want to keep them as far away from.
You know what that is like Sony Live Action calls Sony Pictures Animation, and they're like, okay, you guys are really good at the multiverse. This scene from No Way Home in the bar with the symbiote, that's our universe, right? And they're like, oh yeah, yeah. And then they hang up and just start laughing.
Yeah,
like, this is gonna fuck them up good.
Well, is it gonna be good? Is it gonna be bad? We'll find out this holiday season when KRAVEN the Hunter comes out December 13th. That brings us to our next trailer. This is the I think it's the second look at the second season of Tulsa King. Now, I know that Mikey has not watched this one, but John and I, as unabashed lovers of Sly, ate up that first season from Taylor Sheridan. I mean, it was just so much fun to watch. We did hear some kind of negative things from the shooting of the second season that despite the fact that he has played some beloved characters from the 80s and a really fun character in this show, that Stallone might not be that great a guy, which sucks. But ultimately, Stallone is not the only thing about Tulsa King. There is a fantastic supporting cast and a really good creator in Taylor Sheridan. Johnny, what did you think of our new look at Tulsa King Season 2?
Well, I like that you're bringing in Frank Grillo. I think Grillo is absolutely perfect for a season of television like this. And if I'm not getting my Taylor Sheridan repeat actors confused, aren't they bringing in, what's the actor with the blue eyes and the white hair to challenge?
Neil McDonough.
Neil McDonough, yes. What's his face from Captain America? Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Neil McDonough was also a part of one of the seasons of Yellowstone. So this is Taylor like kind of recycling his guys here. So Neil McDonough and Frank Grillo is a great way to kind of, I use this term loosely, level up the show to have him facing guys that you think could actually go toe-to-toe with Stallone. Because no offense against Dominic from The Wire, but I don't really think that guy can go toe-to-toe with Stallone. Grillo can go toe-to-toe with Stallone. So I'm happy to see, and Neil McDonough as well. So I'm happy to see that they're playing that game. I do see that we're missing the guy, the little dude from The Sopranos who was part of his crew. I think he's only in one shot in the trailer, but everyone else from the first season shows up in the trailer. So I'll be curious to see how things change. I'm sad we lose Andrea Savage and that we're going with Dana Delaney, who I've always been kind of half in, half out on as an actress. So we'll see. But overall, I'm excited. I hope it's good. That's what I'll say.
I mean, of all the Paramount Plus Taylor Sheridan shows, and there are 80, this one is probably my favorite just because of the Stallone factor, but also the dynamic that he has with that supporting cast, with Garrett Hedlund, with Martin Starr. I mean, it is just such a fun show to watch. And if you agree with Johnny and I, tell Vogel in the comments he should watch Tulsa King.
It's the only Taylor Sheridan show I haven't watched, to be honest. So I really should. I've watched all the others. I watched Yellowstone. I watched Yellowstone, The Phantom Menace. I watched Yellowstone, Viva Rock Vegas. Like, I've watched all of them. So I really should watch Tulsa King.
Did you watch Bass Reeves?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm suspect. I'm giving you the Larry David eye right now. I don't know if you've seen that.
Listen, I know that everybody says that the Taylor Sheridan shows are like the MCU for Fox News people. Yeah. But like, I like those shows. Yeah, I'm into them.
Yeah. It's much more progressive than people think, those shows. But yeah, go ahead, Shin.
Well, Tulsa King Season 2 comes out September 15th, and that brings us to our last trailer, the second look at the second season of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. This one coming back to Amazon Prime. If you watched the first season of this show, you saw the return of Sauron, and now we get to see the fallout of that return with the crafting of the rings. I got minimal thoughts. So I'll actually throw this one over to Mikey. What did you think of our second look at the second season of The Rings of Power?
Well, at this point, I think you're either on board for this ride or you're not. Like, there's a lot of people that I know that are like, I watch Rings of Power. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't want it. And then there was a lot of people I know who enjoyed season 1, but definitely felt like season 1 took its time. I mean, I think that was the main criticism, is like, okay, like, this is a slow, somebody said it was like a warm Middle Earth blanket. Like, you just sat there and let the amazing special effects wash over you, but it took its time to get where it needed to go. And this trailer really feels like a reaction to that criticism, where they're like, guys, we took our time in season 1. Season 2's just, we fighting. We fighting and we fighting and we fighting. Like that, the trailer is like, it is all fighting. It's all battles. It's like, we are in the shit now. And so like, I as someone who, I watched all of season 1, I don't think that it like knocked my socks off. Like I never had that thing that I had with like House of the Dragon, where I'm like, oh shit, it's Sunday. Oh my God, tonight's the night. Like, you'd be like, oh, okay, there's another Rings of Power. I will watch that in the afternoon and just sort of relax into Middle Earth. So I'm on board to watch it, but I do think that they sort of have the Rings of Power show in geek culture right now. When we stack it up against the feelings of Star Wars shows, the feelings of Marvel shows, the feelings of The Boys, like every kind of show that we review, I think it sort of has I'll watch it. But it doesn't have anybody like, I don't know anybody. And like, if you are that person who is like, I fucking can't wait, Rings of Power is my favorite of all the shows, talk about it in the comments, and let's talk about why. Because I don't dislike the show. I'm on board to see where it goes. I'm just not oh shit, like it was like, oh okay, it's the end of this month, all right, cool, I'll watch it.
Johnny, do you think this ring is gonna rule us all?
Oh boy. Here's what I'll say. I think from the last trailer and this trailer, it's very clear that they all sat down and said, look, we need to fix some stuff. And so we need to bring it back to at least the energy and the vibe and the pace except for the first movie, of the Lord of the Rings movies. Like, we need to bring it back.
First movie is the best out of the three, and I will die on that hill.
You will die very slowly on that hill. But yeah, this is where I think, to me, I was like, oh, this is a perfect trailer for me. It's kind of like, if in a way, like if you're a KRAVEN fan, you're like, just give me the action. That KRAVEN trailer satisfied you. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, but I'm not deep in the J.R.R. Tolkien mythology. So I'm like, okay, what did I enjoy about the movies? These awesome battle sequences and the drama that led to the battle sequences. All of that is here. I want to know why Galadriel let herself be seduced by Sauron, why she allowed herself to wear the ring, what is going on here. So I think, to me, they cleared away all the excess, and they're like, okay, we're just going. Everybody knows who everybody is. Let's stop fucking around. So, you know what? Spider-Man already exists. He's swinging into this Avengers movie or Captain America movie. He's just in it. Let's go. And so it feels to me like that's what they're doing in the second season. And this trailer reflects that. So that excites me. So for me, I'm on board. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely going to do a rewatch of season 1. I'll probably play my crosswords on my app while I'm watching it, but I'm still going to watch it to kind of have it.
That's a ringing endorsement.
I'm still watching it. And looking forward to season 2. So I like this trailer myself personally.
Yeah, the big disadvantage that I feel like the first season of this show had was that it was either out at the exact same time or very, very close to House of the Dragon. So those fantasy comparisons were inevitable. And there is, with the first season, or rather was with the first season of House of the Dragon, there was this driving force that you get to the end of that episode and like, I cannot wait for another 6 days to find out what happens. And for the majority of the first season of Rings of Power, you didn't have that. The Elrond Durin relationship I thought was great. Galadriel, after a little while, it's like, where is she? Is she on a boat now? Oh, okay. It wasn't until towards the end that the pace really started to pick up that we found out that the stranger is actually Gandalf, which we all kind of suspected. The second season, it's going to be interesting because typically when there is a big gap between season 1 and season 2, me as a viewer, I will try to do a bit of a rewatch. And the thought of taking on that first season again seems like an insurmountable task. And you are
Frodo with the ring, and you're like, I don't know if I can do it.
I can't get up that mountain.
You need Johnny and his crossword puzzles to be like, we've got this, Mr. Frodo. We can do it.
I know. I need John Wise Gamgee right now.
Yeah, to carry you up the hill while I'm doing my crossword.
Maybe we could go faster if you could just figure out what 4 down is. But basically, the trailer, like everything looks good, but there isn't that driving, like I have to know what happens. Maybe the first episode is going to come out and I'm going to be 100% pulled in. My guess is that's not what's going to happen. But either way, the second season of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, starts August 29th on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Shannon, for those trailers. Let's take a quick break. We'll jump into some more stuff here right after this.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
From our resident John Connor.
Thank you, John Connor.
Yeah, right.
Well, as our former Universal Studios John Connor just let us know with his melody, we have got some interesting Terminator tidbits. We'll call them tidbits. James Cameron is currently out promoting his new Nat Geo documentary, Ocean Explorers, and The Hollywood Reporter asked him about Terminator Zero, the new anime series that's launching this month on Netflix. Yeah. And here is what James Cameron said. Looks interesting. My relationship to that is very much like the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Other people spinning stories in a world that I set in motion is interesting to me. What's the takeaway? What intrigued them about it? Where are they going with it? Looks like they're going back to the root cause of Judgment Day. I'd be curious to see what they've come up with. I'm working on my own Terminator stuff right now. It's got nothing to do with that. Like with the Sarah Connor Chronicles, they touch on some things I've been playing with completely independently, so I'm curious. Not a burning curiosity, but I'd like to see it succeed. So, I love that James Cameron has to clarify that he's curious, but not that curious, which I think is a very James Cameron thing to say. But of course, after he sort of just drops the bomb that he's working on Terminator stuff, they obviously asked him what that is. Yeah. And he's like, it's totally classified. I don't want to have to send out a potentially dangerous robot agent if you were to talk about it, even retroactively. So He's working on stuff. Don't know that he's directing a Terminator movie anytime soon because he's going to be in Pandora for the rest of his life, apparently. So what does this mean? Is he writing a Terminator story? Is he handing it off to a director? Is he producing something like he did with Dark Fate? Are we going to get another Terminator movie after Dark Fate? Because after Dark Fate kind of felt like we weren't. So I guess the questions are, 1, do you want more Terminator? 2, do you want more James Cameron Terminator? And 3, what do you think James Cameron's doing on Terminator since he's got a bunch of Na'vi that he's got to build? Johnny?
Oh, this is a standard James Cameron executive producer. Truly, you have a dizzying intellect gobbledygook. That's what this is. It's absolutely what this is. He literally touched all 4 corners on that answer. It's and then followed it up and hit the center, which is, I'd have to kill you if I told you, which is, of course, utter nonsense. But look, I think he's keeping. I'm sure he's always working on Terminator stuff. I mean, the man's an incredibly intelligent guy who knows how to get the public into a movie theater for his stuff. Remember, he co-wrote Terminator Dark Fate, which a lot of people didn't like, but he saved himself by these leaks that came out saying that him and Tim Miller had issues about how the movie was going to be made. So when the movie bombed, James like, I had issues with him. Clearly I was right. He was wrong, blah, blah, blah.
He was like, I was curious what he was doing. I wasn't too curious.
So it's exciting that he might be thinking about coming back to this world, but Michael nails it. I mean, he is so engrossed in 4 and 5 now and the technology for Avatar. And he's gonna touch, speaking of touch all 4 corners, he's gonna touch all 4 elements and go forward with that.
He's gonna become the Avatar. Earth, fire, air, water.
It doesn't mean he can't co-write a script or be involved somehow in a project, but I'd be really surprised to see anything from him in the Terminator universe in the next 10 years. I'd be very surprised if we see anything in that vein, because I mean these Avatar films are a long time to do and make and create and produce and what have you. I mean, Avatar came out like a year ago, 2 years ago, and I remember when we're still working at Universal when a certain somebody I know was shooting their scenes in it and I'm like, that's how long that film took to come out. So it's like, that's how you have to look at this thing. So I can't imagine we'll see anything for another 10 years, man.
Shannon, as the resident closest to touch the Terminator franchise, what do you think?
There have been 4 Terminator films after Terminator 2 that James Cameron, I want to say he sort of like gave his blessing to Terminator Genesis. Salvation, I'm pretty sure he didn't have anything to do with, neither did Arnold. Terminator 3, I think he gave his blessing to Mostow. And then Dark Fate, which he prior to it coming out was apparently very involved, and after it underperformed, not so much. I think they've tried to do the Terminator film with James Cameron not at the helm, and it does not work. I think at this point it has been proven he is the only guy that can direct these movies. And seeing as how he is going to be a little preoccupied for the rest of his career, it doesn't sound like he'll be at the helm. And also you have to factor in Arnold. Like, Arnold is getting long in the tooth. And even though they made that work for Genesis and for Dark Fate, I don't think a third go around is in the cards for the Governator at this point. So I kind of don't want to see it. I mean, I think some time needs to pass, and if they want to give it another go after a little bit of time has passed, like maybe. But at this point, I don't think a James Cameron directorless Terminator is a good move.
All right, I'm going to pitch you something.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Avatar: Fire and Ash. 3rd act. Neytiri and Jake fight the Fire Na'vi. Things aren't looking good for them. Comet comes out of the sky, crash lands on Pandora. It's the Terminator. He goes, I told you I'll be back. And he helps them fight the Fire Na'vi. Listen, the whole 3rd act of Way of Water is basically Titanic. Like, let's be real. Like, there's a giant boat and the boat sinks.
100%.
So I think it is well within James Cameron's purview to be like, you know what? Terminators on Pandora. It's all space. It makes sense. I'm in. I'm in.
That's the hidden truth about James is you can actually poke holes in a lot of his stories. He just has this gift to appeal to really a mass audience with his work. So you can't fault him for that, for God's sake.
I like to think that anytime Tim Miller would bring something up in the room, a valid concern, that James Cameron would just stand over him and yell, "I'm king of the world."
Or just show him his bank account and say, "Really? I can't hear you right now." Like, I clearly have an idea of what I mean.
Jim, but what about I'm king of the world? Okay. We're on hour 7. Okay, you win.
You win fine. I also think this is an interesting thing about James. Like, why hasn't he come back to this franchise to direct an installment? Like the fact that he hides out, and I'm saying that on Pandora because he knows that's printing money. I just wonder if he thinks the Terminator
hides out on the biggest movie franchise financially. I don't think that he's like a hermit.
No, but I'm saying like he knows he printing money with that franchise. It says something that he's been unwilling to come back and direct an installment of the Terminator franchise in all of these years. So
he didn't own the rights. That's really what happened.
Also, who's going to tell James Cameron no if he wants to come direct an installment, though?
But he didn't. Also, that was the thing is he wanted to tell stories the way he. wanted to tell them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. I mean, this is true of James Cameron. Like, look, what's true of James Cameron is most of us have heard the stories. Like, James Cameron sounds like an asshole. He's a super talented asshole, but he's kind of an asshole. But the other part that's true of James Cameron is he's kind of like a George Lucas. What really gets him excited as a director, what gets him excited as a movie maker is just forging ahead with new technology. So back in his Terminator days, he was like a younger director. He made a cool movie. He had a really good special effect. Abyss, he's obsessed with being underwater. So Abyss was obsessed with being underwater. And then ILM helped him build this like the water tube thing. And he said, that's cool. Can I use that? Now I feel like I have an idea for Terminator 2. I think the main reason he did Terminator 2 was because he wanted to use this new technology that ILM had come up with to build the T-1000. That's why T2 works in the way that James Cameron movies work, which is like, holy shit, I've never seen that before. And everything, like with the exception of True Lies, which I think is just a really fun movie, Titanic, he did something on a scale we hadn't seen before. The Avatar movies, whether you enjoy them or not as the stories that they are, technically are just pushing further what we can do with digital effects in cinema. So I think the reason he doesn't come back to do another Terminator movie is I think he doesn't really care. I think he likes the world, and I think honestly, him saying I've got some Terminator ideas is probably he woke up that morning and said, here's what I would do for another robot. And then he tells everybody he's working on some Terminator stuff. Like it could be absolutely nothing. But I think if he had an idea on here's what I can do, like Tim Miller, what Tim Miller did with Dark Fate was try and capture the feel of Terminator 2.
Yeah.
But there was nothing in that movie that you had never seen before. I think if James Cameron had an idea of like, here's what I want to do. I finally want to do Judgment Day. I want to do the robots versus the humans, but I'm going to do it using all the technology I built in Avatar. And this is going to be my swan song. And this is for everybody. This is the real Terminator 3. He'll do it, but it's really more technology based than story based for him, I think.
Well, I think you made a lot of great points. I will push back a little bit. There was some new stuff in Dark Fate. I mean, we had a female Terminator, which I guess we'd seen that in Rise of the Machines. But I mean, from a technical digital filmmaking, James Cameron doesn't go, hey, the Terminator's female. That's a cool digital effect. Like he is solely interested in what can I do on screen from a digital effect standpoint that no one has ever done before. Yeah. Okay. We need a baby Terminator next. That's what we need.
Oh my God. Yes.
But as he said this week, if you guys watched his response, and we'll leave it with this, like if you got an issue with it, you can go outside and touch grass, according to him, as he was talking about those 4K transfers. That's the James Cameron I hate and love at the same time. So, and he's going to do whatever the hell he wants. And that's basically it. And you're right, Mike. He probably wrote something down on a Post-it and then threw it on the side of his desk. It was like,
he probably has a little pad by his desk. He wakes up at like 3 a.m. and he writes something down like polka dot digital cinema robot gears. And he wakes up and he goes, don't know what that was. I'll figure it out one day.
What do Terminators eat? Anyway, all right, let's Let's move on, shall we, Mikey, or do you want to say more on this?
No, let's move on. Let's do it.
Move on to some comic book stuff. This is really interesting here. I think I'm going to start with the most interesting of the stories, and that's this one. Darren Aronofsky is apparently, it has popped up now that he might actually be directing a version of Plastic Man, or the DC Comics Plastic Man movie for James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC universe. And this came out about half a year ago from DCU Leaks. Want to give proper credit here, but people like kind of poo-pooed it and said no way. In fact, before we started doing the show, one member of the Geek Buddies thought it was a strange idea. But cut to today or yesterday, and a listing on Production Weekly had Aronofsky's name as the director of Plastic Man, and added that the project is in development. Furthermore, a source for World of Real, who I really enjoy and read, and I like those guys over there, indicates that they've heard about Aronofsky's potential involvement as well. So, as the resident skeptic of this, Shannon McClung, your thoughts? Darren Aronofsky working on and directing a Plastic Man movie, one of the most goofiest heroes in the DC universe.
Well, on its surface, the director of Requiem for a Dream taking on Plastic Man doesn't connect in my brain. Now, obviously, Darren Aronofsky is an incredibly talented director. I mean, I think the wrestler, I mean, really sort of, revitalizing the career of Mickey Rourke for a brief time.
For a couple of years. Yeah.
But just a fantastic, heartfelt film that, again, based off of his previous work, I did not expect to see. So I would leave the door open for that, to be like, okay, I've never seen him take on something as potentially light and comedic as this. So I would leave the door open. Like, if Darren Aronofsky has a pitch that James Gunn is excited about, and knowing that, again, James Gunn and Peter Safran are ultimately the ones on the DC side saying yay or nay, it's kind of like, okay, but when you look at Eel O'Brien, and despite the fact that he is a reformed criminal, I just don't see the connection between Aronofsky and Plastic Man. That being said, I could 100% be wrong. Maybe he gets Ben Schwartz or Andy Samberg to play Eel O'Brien, and they make a great movie. But based off of some of the creative choices that James Gunn and Peter Safran have made thus far, and again, in terms of directors, it's literally Superman and Supergirl at this point. But Aronofsky as a choice is a little confusing for me. But again, if this is the direction that they feel they want to take it, let's see what happens. Yeah,
Mike, Aronofsky was involved with DC back in 2000. There were rumors about him working on a Batman Year One adaptation. That feels much more in the Aronofsky wheelhouse. James Gunn pitched a Plastic Man movie with Matthew Lillard in the starring role years ago that was rejected by DC. There have been apparently 2 scripts written since 2020 on this Plastic Man thing, one starring a woman and one set in the 1940s with it back being a man being Plastic Man. Your thoughts on Aronofsky possibly stepping into this void and directing this movie?
There's 2 things that come to mind. One is kind of along Shannon's line, is like, this makes no sense. Like Darren Aronofsky is Darren Aronofsky. Like, every movie he makes basically says the world is a horrible, dark, and disgusting place. And Eel O'Brien is the stretchy goofball of the Justice League. Like, it just doesn't make sense. The other side of it is a goofy, stretchy superhero nobody really wants in live action. Like the Plastic Man, when we all think of what Plastic Man would be, if you've read the comics and you think of a movie, you think of this like really broad, stretchy comedy, and like that's not it. I don't think that movie works. I think that movie is a bomb. I think that it's like Jim Carrey in The Mask, but modern day, and it's kind of like, So in a way, you've got to do something radically different if you were ever to tackle Plastic Man. And giving somebody who is at the other end of the spectrum tonally the movie and saying, look, you go with this, it would give us something like I think that this is one of those, most of the time I would argue with a comic book IP, like lean into what it is. If it's a funny, goofy hero, do that. If it's a dark and gritty hero, do that. Like, I think that's what you should do. Plastic Man and stretchy heroes in general. I mean, I'm really, you know, like one of the things we've not seen at all with the Fantastic Four stuff is like what Reed Richards is going to look like when he stretches. Like, I think what most of us think of with Reed Richards in Fantastic Four, his superpower is really that he's the smartest guy in the Marvel universe.
Right.
He also stretches. So how is that going to work? But Eel O'Brien, he is not the smartest person in the DC universe. So all he's really got is, look at me, I just turned into a toilet with a face. And like, I don't know that's really working for anybody. So it'll be interesting to see. It's like on the surface, Shannon's right. You're like, what is this? I don't know that this is the right vibe, but maybe that's what Plastic Man needs. Also, I would argue, I don't know that we need a Plastic Man movie. So whether any of this sees the light of day,
that's a fair
doubtful.
Okay. Yeah, I would be shocked to see it. But then again, I didn't think Aronofsky would do a professional wrestling movie with Mickey Rourke. So, and The Whale kind of revitalized Brendan Fraser. So, I mean, these are these things that he does really well that kind of shock you. So maybe there's an angle they want to approach on this that impressed Gunn and Safran and that excited Aronofsky creatively. We will see down the road. Let's move on to this other thing. James Gunn is telling us, speaking of the DC universe, that he's good to go. He is not expecting to do any reshoots on his Superman movie, which is, of course, coming out next year, before the next Comic-Con. But yeah, with plenty of time before the film's release, he was asked about reshoots on Threads. And Gunn, of course, never shying away from social media, says he doesn't expect any reshoots to take place and said his track record speaks to that, as his last two films only saw a single day of additional photography done across the two. He said, when asked about how you prepare to do it this way, he said, proper preparation. I over-prepare. Don't start shooting until I have a finished script my whole team is happy with. Hire actors and department heads I know can do their jobs. Surround myself with people who will challenge me and not just yes sir everything. Ask myself daily, are there any small imperfections in the script or what we're shooting that might end up feeling like huge imperfections when we cut the film together? What novel ideas that no one has ever thought of, Michael. Incredible from James Gunn. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a shot across the bow, or do you believe this? Your thought?
My first thought is that picture that you just posted is the most retouched photo of James Gunn that I've ever seen, and there's not a wrinkle on his face. So, like, kudos to whoever retouched that photo, because that is the smoothest James Gunn I've ever seen.
That's a lot of light.
He looks like he's on the cover of a queer fashion magazine. I was like, oh, this fall, yellow is in for the gays. It's like, okay. Beyond that, I think both things are true. I think that he is being honest. I think that is how he shoots. I think that he is not incorrect that his movies don't tend to have a lot of reshoots, and I think the reasons he lays out are the reasons why. I also think if you read that quote that Johnny just read and just put "like Marvel does" at the end of every sentence, that's what he's saying.
Yes,
Kevin Feige. I mean, Kevin Feige straight up says our reshoots are part of our success because we keep working on it until we get it right. That ignores the fact that those same reshoots have killed visual effects houses to the point that they have had to unionize.
Good point.
So the fact that Marvel does this whole, we kind of run in with a movie, we think we've got it, we shoot it all, we realize we don't got it, we cast Giancarlo Esposito, we bring in some new people, we rewrite the story, we change villains, we have our special visual effects team do 3 times the work that they would have had to do. James Gunn is very specifically talking about Marvel here. And James Gunn is saying at DC, that's not how we're going to roll. Now, that might not be how James Gunn rolls as a director. What remains to be seen is the bigger the DC universe gets and the more you're trying to make sure those connections work. James Gunn as a director, I think, does do all the things he says. James Gunn as the leader, creative lead of a universe with other creative directors, other creative teams, at what point does he see all of the footage come in from some other movie that he wasn't on set for and go, oh, wait, this whole third act doesn't match with what we're doing in Brave and the Bold 2. Yeah. You have to go reshoot this. So I think like James Gunn as a director, he is very on solid ground with what he's saying. James Gunn, the creative lead of a massive IP, may run into some of the same problems that Kevin Feige has, and he may eat those words down the road.
Probably, yeah. Shannon, this is an excellent point Michael brings up, because I get so much crap from people on the YouTube message boards when I say that there is, in my opinion, a little bit of a heated rivalry between these two guys. And people are like, no, they love each other. They say they love each other. But Michael just said that magic word there, kind of like when you say in the bed, he said, like Marvel. And so that makes all the sense in the world to me. What do you think of these quotes? And do you believe him that he's not going to do any reshoots?
I believe that's his intention right now. I would be curious when you look at the MCU catalog when the I won't call them excessive, but sufficient reshoots, when that started to come into play. Because Superman, this is literally the first domino. And it is James Gunn being like, this is what is going to start everything off. I think he fully has the intention, like, there will be no reshoots, because we know what we're doing going forward. Yeah. But as Vogel already pointed out, he can't be everywhere at once. And he is just one person. So he can't be on set to see how everything else is going. Even if you're watching dailies, there's only so many hours in a day. Yeah. And I think along with potentially having to correct some things, I think the further they go down this road, I think something that Marvel is very good at is they see opportunities with reshoots to be like, oh, here's something that we can shore up this connection if we add this here. So I think right now that is 100% what he wants to do. But as Vogel already put, being a director and being the creative head of a cinematic universe, those are very different jobs. So yeah, good luck to him.
It's easy not to do reshoots on the first film out. It's much harder on the 24th film out when things are changing and schedules are being all messed up in COVID or whatever. You know, that's what I'm saying. Now, or strikes, yeah.
I will say, in James Gunn's defense, like the key difference, and like we talked about the negative aspect, the potential negative side of this is James Gunn is a director first. James Gunn has made movies, he's directed movies, he's shot movies. Kevin Feige's been a producer his whole life. Mm-hmm. Kevin Feige never directed his own film. Kevin Feige never wrote his own film. Kevin Feige is really good at Kevin Feigeing for sure. But being that guy who's always on that executive side, maybe you're not in the weeds with your costume team and your visual effects team and everybody else. And James Gunn seems, and from what I've heard from people who have worked with him, very much like he's in it with his team. Like him saying, I hired the right people. I trust people. I don't want yes man. They challenge me. Like from what I've heard, a lot of that is his vibe.
Yes.
Whether he always feels that way or not, whether he feels that way deep inside, I don't know. But that seems to be the vibe that he puts forth. So as he steps into this bigger role, maybe he is the one that's like, look, I want to fix this, but we're not going to kill the visual effects team. Maybe he is that guy. Yeah, like that's so like there's, we're saying like, oh, good luck. You're going to be in the same position. But given his unique experience is separate from Kevin Feige's experience, he may handle it differently. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I do think he is absolutely going to run into problems that he's never had to deal with being the captain of his own ship on one single film.
Especially when he's got to hit release dates, Michael. That's another part of it as well, for sure. Yeah, it's good points, guys. Let's move on to this other story here. So we were talking about Sony's Spider-Man villains earlier, but this is now starting to pop up recently. This idea of Sony Pictures possibly tossing in their villains and wanting to use them quickly to make them unavailable or to retain their rights against Marvel Studios. Sony maintains the rights to Spider-Man and all of his villains right now and the supporting characters, but the deal that was signed there between Marvel and Sony, the deal allows Marvel Studios to have Tom Holland's Wallcrawler appear in their movies, of course, while the solo Spider-Man films remain Sony Marvel co-productions. And Sony has been going forward with their stuff, as we mentioned, Venom, Morbius, and that KRAVEN Hunt the Hunter trailer we just saw here. But according to Daniel RPK there, whenever Sony uses a villain, they block Marvel Studios from using them, which means there aren't many left for MCU Spider-Man to face off against. And so what would that mean? Michael, I go back to you on this one as an executive, as someone who's been in those rooms talking about characters and how they're being used and when they're being used. Do you think that Sony is doing this, or do you think this was one of these stories kind of get some traction, but it's not really authentically what Sony is doing at this point?
I don't know if Sony's doing it on purpose. I think Sony really believes that they're going to make this universe work, which God love people and their delusions. But given the fact that even I read this story, and what I started to, I just went through it in my head, and I was like, it is interesting because Spider-Man No Way Home, which we all love, like Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Sandman,
and Lizard,
were all the people from the Sony movies, and Electro were all the characters from the Sony movies that came over. And Marvel, we've had Scorpion, we've had Vulture, we've had Mysterio, none of whom were touched. Rumors for Spider-Man 4 are Kingpin, Mr. Negative.
Yeah.
There's one more, isn't there? Was there one more that has been rumored for Spider-Man 4? Mr. Negative and Kingpin were the big ones.
It's not Black Cat, right?
No. Okay, but like, so like based on what has happened thus far and the way all these characters have been treated, it supports this as a theory. That like at no point has at no point has Marvel recast a villain that was already a villain that was established in any Spider-Man movie.
Right.
They've just brought them over. And so I don't know. I also think it's going to be kind of a non-issue at a certain point. Tom Holland's getting older. I think we are going to get a Spider-Man 4. I think Spider-Man will be in Secret Wars. Past that, I don't know how much longer. I don't think Tom Holland is going to Hugh Jackman his way and play Spider-Man until he's 90. You know, I don't think that's where that's going to go. I think we're going to jump over to a Miles Morales at some point. I think at some point the Marvel Universe reboots itself. So this is one of those things that I think there's enough villains in the Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man has the best rogues gallery aside from Batman. So as many villains as Sony can pump out, if this is true, I think Marvel can take the second and third tier villains and still make better Spider-Man movies than Sony does. So it might be true, but in the long run, I think it ends up being a academic discussion and not anything that's actually going to negatively impact the Marvel Spider-Man movies.
What are your thoughts on this shit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Sony's trying to beat them to the punch, because ultimately Sony is the boss in this.
Right.
Like they are the ones who own the rights to these characters. So they can and they can say no to Marvel. Like if Marvel had they wanted to use KRAVEN, they could have said no. We're going to do this we have this idea to do a KRAVEN movie. And I do think Vogel's right that at some point the Tom Holland era of Spider-Man is going to end.
Yeah.
So I think there are still plenty of characters left over that they don't need to recast. Like they're not going to recast their own KRAVEN. They're not going to recast their their own Venom. Maybe Venom, just because of that little bit of goo. But again, we'll find out for sure once KRAVEN comes out.
That little bit of goo's in Venom 3.
but yeah, ultimately, I think it's kind of a non-starter. I think Marvel is not worried about having a Spider-Man villain problem. That they are confident enough in their storytelling skills, aspects of Phase 4 and Phase 5 aside, that they're going to be able to take Mr. Negative, who people who play the video game know who he is. The public by and large doesn't. They're going to be able to take somebody like Mr. Negative and make him huge. Yeah. So yeah, ultimately, I think it's not going to be that big an issue down the road.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. Like just because Sony uses them doesn't mean Marvel's going to be like, no. And there's no way deals can't be worked out if the story makes sense. And as Michael pointed out, they've already used a lot of these Sony Marvel villains in quote unquote an MCU movie because Sony is involved in it. So there's a way to work all of this out, but they may be wanting to do this to maybe poison the public's mind against a new version of this character, or maybe encourage Marvel not to create another version of KRAVEN or Rhino or whatever in their particular universe. But
to Shannon's point, they don't have to convince Marvel of anything. They own it. Like they just say no.
Well, yeah. But that's what I'm getting at. Maybe they think that it's their. I don't know. You're right. Maybe you're right. I'm trying to figure out Sony logic, and they have a dizzying intellect, so I don't know. But let's move on to bigger fish. Let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into the Beau DeMayo stuff for sure right after this.
Like
you put the gap there. Michael, I think you got this one. Or do you need me to set it up? What are you?
No. I'm gonna lay it all out, and then we'll talk about it. So yesterday was a wild day. All of the X-Men 97 drama that we had left behind a couple months ago came roaring back to social media. Just to review, A week before X-Men 97 premiered on Disney Plus, Beau DeMayo, the showrunner and lead of the series, was let go from Marvel under mysterious circumstances, and none of us knew why. Beau DeMayo then kind of remained silent for the first several weeks of X-Men 97's launch. And with the 5th episode of X-Men 97, the Emmy Award-nominated episode, he started coming out on social media again, engaging with fans, talking about the show. Still never mentioned anything about what happened with Marvel, but gave us lots of homework and kind of rode that ride of popularity throughout X-Men 97, which by anyone's estimation was a huge hit for Marvel, a huge hit for Disney Plus, and for X-Men fans, a welcome breath of fresh air in the X universe. Now, yesterday, as of us recording this, Beau DeMayo posted on both X and Instagram a post saying, creating this revival was a dream come true, and the support fans have shown is so touching. However, I felt it pressing for me to speak up in the wake of leaving the show. Above is an X-Men fan art I posted on Instagram for Gay Pride in June. On June 13th, Marvel sent a letter notifying me that they'd stripped me my season 2 credits due to the post. Sadly, this is the latest in a troubling pattern I suffered through while working on X-Men 97 and Blade. The post was an illustration of a shirtless and ripped DeMayo, which we now have up and you can see.
Yeah.
And then
there at the bottom, more to say at the bottom there.
Yes, and then he said, I'll have more to say soon, but must take a step back from social media to find a safer space for me to be out, proud, and nerdy. Stay tuned. So obviously this caught the internet by wildfire. It also caught Marvel by wildfire, and Marvel sent out a press release hours later saying Mr. DeMayo was terminated in March of 2024 following an internal investigation. Given the egregious nature of the findings, we severed ties with him immediately, and he has no further affiliation with Marvel. So, which has now left the internet going, thanks, guys. You still haven't actually told us that much. I think that there was a lot of confusion because what Beau posted with the photo and saying they stripped me of my credits in June, a lot of people were saying he said that's why they fired him, but that was in June. He was fired in March, right before the launch of the show. So then there was a lot of discussion about his season 2 credits getting stripped because he was in breach of contract with Marvel. Nobody really knows what that means. The egregious behavior that Marvel had said in their press statement has now sort of been insiders at Marvel are saying was some form of sexual misconduct. There have been rumors about him being physically and emotionally abusive. There have been rumors about him sending photos to crew members. There have been a lot of things flying around on the internet, and I think we are all sort of waiting to find out from either Marvel or Beau what actually happened. But it was a lot for X fans to chew on, and it seems like fans of the show are either are all over the place, to be honest with you. I did a quick scroll of Twitter right before we recorded, and I think the only thing that seems common is that everyone is like, can somebody just fucking say it? Like, we just want to know what the fuck actually happened. But gentlemen, what do you make of all of this?
I need to throw in one more update here, Michael. Maybe you didn't see this, but he responded to Marvel's statement on social media after claiming he was going to take a break on social media. This is what he said. The truth will be revealed after their Disney Plus disaster. Marvel wants to mislead with alleged contract breaches over tweets. It's tragic it's come to this, but unsurprising. Stay tuned. So that adds an extra element to this. But as you said, Michael, we're still in like, what the fuck happened mode. Everyone wants to know what happened. Certainly the three of us have heard stuff. Jeff on the hot mic has heard stuff about what he allegedly did, which you alluded to just a few seconds ago, Michael. So to me, this was coming. As soon as he started responding on social media, you knew he was coming for Marvel at some point. And now that he hasn't been invited for the Emmy thing, which he was grousing about for days, now the gloves seem to be off on his side of things. Unless he's got receipts like a motherfucker, this is a dumb move. And I think Marvel is going to start issuing out what they can issue out. And this is I don't know, this seems self-destructive on Beau DeMayo's part on so many levels. Ride the wave of season 1, keep everything under wraps, go get another job because of season 1. and no one will be talking about it in a year from now. The fact that you're picking this fight with Marvel, I think is very dangerous for him in his career, and it could blow up in his face. And clearly, he does have some mental health stuff. As he said, he needs to take a break from social media. Why would you encourage a war when you have those issues? I don't understand it. But, that's what I think about when I see all this. Because he's accusing a Disney company that has been taking so much shit for supposedly going woke and going into the gay agenda to all of a sudden being anti-gay, which seems odd. So, Shannon, sorry, I've talked for 10 minutes here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, right now it kind of seems like it's a game of publicity chicken. That until both sides actually show their cards, the public is never going to know what actually happened. And I think the likelihood that both sides are going to show their cards is probably pretty low. Because even in Marvel's response, there's a lot of broad terminology.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that's deliberate. I think they are, because even like the sexual misconduct, Marvel didn't say that. If I'm correct, like the
egregious breaks of whatever. Yeah.
Right. So the rumors that have been bandied about, they have not been confirmed by Marvel. They just said egregious findings. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, in terms of him, like I don't know the man, but at a local geek themed bar that we have here in Los Angeles called the Scum and Villainy Cantina, when new episodes were dropping, they were doing X-Men 97 nights, and a lot of the cast would show up, and Beau DeMayo showed up, and Beau DeMayo from social media seemed to have a good relationship with the cast. So depending on whether or not they know fully what went down, my guess is that their ears are closer to the ground than all of ours. They don't seem to have a problem being photographed with him in public. So who knows what actually happened, and who knows whether or not we're going to hear about it. But him coming out, I mean, this was clearly weighing heavy on his heart, and he felt the need to put it out there. But the fact that even he said, "Stay tuned," I'm curious how close to the legality line he's dancing.
I do wonder. I think Shannon's whole a game of PR chicken does seem to be what we are all experiencing. Like, John, you're right. Unless you have a ton of receipts, unless you are very confident in your side of things, coming out swinging against Marvel and Disney is it's a choice.
What
I was trying to do is sort of like go along and say, okay, look, so March, he got fired the week before the show premiered for reasons that at the time we didn't know. And the only thing we heard from Marvel was Entertainment Weekly interviewed Brad Winderbaum, who said that DeMayo wasn't fired, but that they had parted ways, and says, I can't talk about details, but I can say that Beau had real respect and passion for the characters and wrote what I think are excellent scripts. So that was that. And that's kind of all we got about it. And then Beau started posting and everything happened. And then according to him, in June during Gay Pride Month, when he posted that photo, that's when Marvel took away his season 2 credits. And that apparently, based on that tweet that you just showed, that those season 2 credits were taken away because of tweets. Because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if he rolled back into Marvel and kicked everybody's desks and they said no more season 2 credits for you. But based on what he's implying, I think, is that him talking about the show so much was some kind of issue. It seems like. Now, what did he do? This is where it gets to you think about the Jonathan Majors situation, you think about other situations. It's when there is some kind of massive physical altercation, massive sexual somebody attacked somebody harassed somebody, oftentimes we get the story. We hear about it. It's a pretty much like with Jonathan Majors, we knew exactly why. And so the one thing I'll say, and this is not me taking one side or the other side, both sides are being very cagey. Both sides are being very whatever. And you would think that if either side had major receipts, here is this person that was attacked.
Yeah.
Here is this person that was sexually assaulted. Here is this person who got sent unsolicited pictures to and was like, oh shit, like that's a receipt.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering why we're not hearing more. And like we're hearing lots of rumors flying. And what I really also think is I don't know that either side can go that much further playing chicken, because with all of the leaks and people talking about it, I think someone's revealing this sooner than later.
Well, yeah. Okay.
No, go ahead.
It's funny you say that, because my co-host on the Hot Mic, Jeff Sneider, just released a report on this, and it's being picked up on the internet. And I'm going to bring up, as this is happening right now, this is what he has reported according to X-Men Updates. Beau DeMayo, this is according to Jeff Sneider, Beau DeMayo reportedly sent inappropriate in various states of undress pictures to several young male staffers, striking sexually suggestive hero poses that could be used as inspiration for the show. DeMayo was asked to stop sending such photos, but continued to do so. Then Snyder's also reporting an incident that involved Beau DeMayo groping an assistant on multiple occasions, and that he was both emotionally and physically abusive to staffers. So that is Snyder's reporting from what he's hearing. But as Michael said, we're not hearing it from the horse's mouth. Jeff is hearing that from sources that he has at Marvel and who know Beau. So I mean, if that's I don't know where you think you have a leg to stand on if those accusations are true and if those things happen, you know.
I think if you grope somebody, it's like game over. You're out.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you grow. Like emotionally and physically abusive gets into a physically abusive. You're out because you attacked somebody, and there would be a police report or some kind of like there'd be you attacked somebody. What is the story? What was the situation?
Right.
We've seen footage of celebrities in elevators, in hotel hallways, in cars. Like what was the physical altercation? Emotional abuse is weird because there's a lot of showrunners in Hollywood that you could pull. I don't like, I wonder what the category is. Yeah. Sending nude photos. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Contextually, I would want to know more about like if they're unsolicited, if I'm just sitting working on my show and my boss is sending me naked photos and saying, yeah, this is how you should draw Wolverine. That's weird.
Yes.
But like contextually, I like being in the gay world versus the straight world. When it comes to sending pictures of things, I'm like, I want to hear more about that. Like, I want to know what that actually was. Like, if anybody was ever uncomfortable, if anything was unsolicited, I think it's go back to you're out. But I think like there's more that I would want to know about that. Not that like that's appropriate behavior, but we get into this thing like I'm really just curious about the specifics. I really want to know more about the specifics.
Yeah, I agree. Shannon?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of physical abuse,
yeah.
In this climate, in this day and age, if someone had been a victim of assault and battery, I think I think the authorities, the police are involved, especially if it's being done on company property. If this is something that happened in an office, even if the victim doesn't report it, someone's going to have seen it.
It should have been reported. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone is going to report it, even if the victim doesn't report it. In terms of again, they don't say nude, they say various levels of undress, right?
Yes.
So if he sends a photo of him with a shirt off saying, hey, this is how I want Wolverine to look in this picture, I mean, it's unorthodox, but I don't know if that falls under the umbrella of sexual harassment. Like, and again, I'm not a lawyer. Like, I could 100% be wrong, but yeah, it's. I'll be very. It seems like more and more information is going to start coming out about this.
I do feel like with Jeff, that literally just came out. You said.
Yeah. I just posted it about 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
I mean, I think this kind of has to force either Beau DeMayo and his rep's hand or force Disney and Marvel's hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this sort of has to force them to be like, yeah, or no, or it was this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, if this is if you remove the gay aspect of this, right? Like if this is a male boss to a female staffer sending them various pictures of undress, there's no question that's harassment. There's no question that's harassment. How do we know these male staffers are gay? How do we know these male staffers or the people who receive this stuff were okay with it? So I think
I guess to your point, let's take a step back from like gay, straight, male.
No showrunner should be doing this. That's the
no showrunner should be doing it.
Whatever.
But is it consensual or not?
Right, exactly. 100%.
Again, not that you should do it. Like I'm not saying that like, hey, your assistant says, hey, send me a picture of your butt, and you're like, sure, like dumb. Right. But the difference of two people talking and saying, hey, send me this photo versus I'm sitting at my desk and my boss just sends me his dick. Yeah. Like, it's two different things. Both inappropriate, to be clear.
Right. It's inappropriate. Yes.
And also, like, again, whether or not it was a dick pic or if it was like, hey, here's me with my shirt off, I want Wolverine to look like this. If you are then told to stop and you continue, that is where you have crossed the line.
That's the right.
And it is like, I mean, look, I've had... In my time as an executive, I went into an office once and another gay employee was like, you should drop your pants and show me your dick right now, which is inappropriate. I said no. And he said, come on. And I said, you have to buy me a Crunchwrap Supreme and a Baja Blast like anybody else does, and walked out of the office. Inappropriate, but also like we were friends and I didn't really care. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like it's a wild world out there.
No, it's a fair point. I myself have engaged in affairs with upper management, and it is not a good thing to do. So right. I mean, you understand that, but if it comes out, you also understand that there's a punishment that has to be administered. And when it gets found out, that's a situation. So this, like I said earlier, this is all dropping now from Jeff, but the fact that Beau went and essentially poked the Disney bear is what just happened? Did you guys text each other something?
No. I just heard I heard a joke in my head. It's not.
No, I actually Deadline. Man, this is. I love Geek Buddies when it's live updates.
Woof.
Deadline just posted, Beau DeMayo's lawyer accuses Disney of gaslighting, hints at legal action following dismissal and X-Men 97 credit removal. The war of words between X-Men 97 creator Beau DeMayo and Marvel has escalated and gone beyond comic book themed company to engulf Disney. Brian Friedman, who has handled some of Hollywood's biggest wrongful termination cases in the past few years, now represents DeMayo, has issued a blistering statement to Deadline after his client's claim on social media that he had lost his season 2 credit on X-Men 97 over sharing gay pride themed fan art. Friedman did not address specific allegations, but blasted Disney's practices, which he referred to as illegal multiple times. Having much experience with Disney, the playbook is always the same. Family-friendly on the outside, but secretly attempting to plant illegal, unconscionable items in contracts that silence the truth and stop the employee customer from asserting basic constitutional rights. As we will explain through detailed examples, which we will roll out in detail one by one, Disney's model is very clear and a repetitive illegal pattern. Once it gets challenged or exposed, the gaslighting and redirection of the blame toward anyone willing to tell the truth starts through an international, well-oiled publicity machine. As for his client, he says Beau DeMayo wants nothing from Marvel Disney except the truth. He will bravely tell the truth. So will I. Stand by.
Oh, my.
Also, can we talk about, for all of our audience watching us on YouTube, can we talk about that mega meat sale at a local grocery store that's happening right now as well?
The ads?
I didn't say the name of the store.
Look, this is a lawyer that represented Sage Steele, who was a well-known right-wing person who started expressing her opinions on ESPN, and ESPN, who of course is a company under Disney, let her go, and she sued. So I don't know. Beau is aligning himself with an interesting lawyer in this whole process, but the idea of NDAs certainly seems to be what Friedman is talking about, and this idea that companies use NDAs to silence people who don't speak out on negative treatment that they've received. So this is, now we're going into nuclear place. Am I wrong on this? It
feels nuclear. It's going to be wild. And to your point, I mean, at the end of the day, like it's fun to talk about because like who doesn't love a little bit of drama between like, you know, creatives and studios, but The real question is, what do you get at this at the end of the day? Like, you know, do you go through, I mean, you know, like it really reminds me of like what Ray Fisher went through with DC and the Justice League movies and everything. It's like, what is it worth to speak out and tell your truth? Even if you end up like, you have to actually be completely at the end of the day exonerated, justified to then go, okay, well, I'm going to continue to go do whatever my next job is, to your point. So it's like, the real question is like, what's the end game here? Like, what do you get out of it?
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're going to keep tabs on it. Clearly, this is a show that should have been live now, considering all the stuff that was blown up, but we've got our show that we recorded here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Anything more to say on this from you, Shannon, or Mikey? Are we good? It feels like, Mike, you gave your final words on this. Shannon, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, that whole statement about 3 minutes ago when I said, yeah, we're probably never going to know what actually happened, that might be wrong.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be a lot of receipts being thrown around.
If you've ever read an X-Men comic, you know X-Men is a soap opera, and it feels like this is no different.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's going to be like, look, let's just get to a number and let's be done with this. Because I think like if both sides are going to elevate this thing, let's just get to a number, settle this thing, and then move on, because for the greater good, because this will end up staining season 2. Like, how will they put out season 2 with all this drama that is still kind of lingering? I don't know.
I mean, look, the news cycle in both entertainment and politics is really fast. Remember 35 years ago when Trump got when they attempted assassination on Trump?
Yeah, that was 35 years ago.
Season 2 of X-Men is a long time from now. No matter how wild this is for the next week or so, I don't think anybody's going to even remember this by the time X-Men 97 season 2 comes out.
You're insane. I think they will absolutely remember it, especially if it's still going. But we'll see. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here, because this is a supersized show now. All right. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddy. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. What do you think? Are we going to hear about this by the time X-Men 97 comes out during season 2? If you don't think so, follow Mike Vogel @MKToon. If you think that not only are we going to hear about it, it will not have been settled by that point, follow Johnny Rocha @TheRochaSays.
You will see. Mikey,
go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. He has lots of amazing geek content and awesome deals on meat. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you thought of everything. What did you think of the trailers? What do you think of Beau DeMayo? What do you think of everything that's going on in the world of geekdom? Let us know. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
I was trying to zoom in. Away from the meat. I'm sorry.
John Rocha, we've got the meat.
It was a mega meat sale.
Hey-o. Oh boy, there's a lot of jokes you can make about meat in that story. All right, thanks everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies and meat sale.